Hey guys, TooSaucery back again. I figured I'd bring you guys a guide here that does not involve selling anything on the auction house and is guaranteed to provide you raw gold every time you do it. Today we're going to be talking about old raid content, Cataclysm expansion raids to be more specific here, and how you can get a nice sizable amount of gold from doing them. So what you're going to need to do before you start is to set your raid difficulty to Heroic 25 man. Now this is extremely crucial. Killing a boss in a Cataclysm raid that is set to Heroic 25 man difficulty will provide you with 125 gold per kill. If you do not change this, what you're going to end up with is 25 gold per boss. So if you've entered a raid and killed a boss before setting this, then good game, hearthstone out and move on to the next raid or wait for next week's lockout. Don't waste your time finishing the dungeon, as there are better ways to make gold with your time. So in Cataclysm there are 4 raid dungeons that you're going to be focusing on: the Bastion of Twilight, the Blackwing's Descent, the Firelands, and the Dragon Soul. So before we get right into this, I am going to mention the gold that you do receive from the bosses is going to be 125 gold regardless if you're solo or not. So if you want to do this with a friend to make it less boring, because it can get very grindy if you're doing it multiple times a week on different characters. You'll notice in my video here, I am on my rogue and I did invite my other rogue friend, and we're just ripping through these dungeons as fast as possible. The only downside to inviting other people is that you're going to be sharing loot from boss drops, which you intend to vendor, so there is a small gold loss there. But you'll still be making bank regardless. Also while vendoring any junk, keep an eye out for the epic bind on pickup items, as you can sell them on the auction house, and sometimes the raid patterns do sell for quite a bit as well. So the first raid dungeon that we're going to be talking about is the Bastion of Twilight. It's located in the Twilight Highlands, obviously. Once you have your map open, there's a giant spire down at the bottom left corner. I have it circled here on the screen for you. The raid portal is at the top of that spire. The instance contains 5 raid bosses, so that's a minimum of 625 gold from the bosses alone. The instance is fairly straightforward. The only boss that may be a little bit confusing is Sinestra. She's at the very end. After killing Cho'Gall, just jump down the hole that he creates in the floor. Once she's engaged, during one of her phases she will become immune. There's going to be 2 large eggs in this room, one to the left and right of her. If you continue to do damage to her, it will reduce her mana pool, and when her mana pool gets low enough, she will emote. At that point you can destroy the eggs. Once both eggs are destroyed, you are able to continue to do DPS to Sinestra. It's easy stuff. The whole dungeon should take roughly about 15 minutes. I typically tend to clear all the trash in these dungeons just to try and maximize gold drops. And with another person doing this dungeon with me, I came up to 706 raw gold and 438 gold in vendor trash. Okay, moving on. The next raid dungeon we have here is Blackwing's Descent. This raid is found on the side of Blackrock Mountain on the Syrian Gorge side. If you don't know where that is, I have it circled here on the map for you. The raid portal is fairly close to the top of the mountain on this ledge here. There are 6 raid bosses in this dungeon, so that's a minimum of 750 raw gold you'll be gaining. This is another 15-minute dungeon. All of the bosses are pretty much tank and spank. The only thing you're going to need to be careful of here is the boss Chimeron. On this boss, there is a little gnome in the cage behind him. You must talk to the gnome before you engage the boss. Just due to the one-shot mechanic that this boss has, the gnome will provide you with a buff that will prevent you from dying, but you'll need to heal up quickly after you've been hit. So after clearing this dungeon, I made out with 757 raw gold and 271 gold in vendor trash. Okay, so the next raid zone is the Firelands. It is located in the zone Mount Hyjal, at the Sulphur and Spires circled here on the map. There are 7 bosses in this zone, which means you'll be getting a minimum of 875 gold. This dungeon takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete, depending if you're clearing all the trash or not, or going straight to the bosses. The only really annoying boss in here is Shanox. He has some fire dogs with him. You're going to want to kill the dogs first, otherwise they're just going to chain stun you to death, and you're going to slowly die after 5 minutes of being annoyed from not being able to control your character, if you don't kill yourself before then, that is. Also, Bale Rock can be really annoying as well, if you don't have good DPS. You're going to want to use cooldowns on the Decimation Blade and use any healing ability you have afterwards if it lands. After clearing this, I made out with 957 raw gold and 474 gold in vendor trash. So the last raid dungeon that you can do is the Dragon Soul. This dungeon is roughly about 30 minutes long, and it's located inside of the Caverns of Time in the Teneris zone, which is shown here on the map. Once inside the Caverns of Time, you can open up your map again, and it is this dungeon here. It has 8 bosses, so that's a total of 1000 raw gold minimum, and most of these bosses are just tank and spank at level 100. Altraxian is a DPS test for the most part, and he does have a one-shot mechanic, so if you have low damage, you're not going to make it past this boss. And then there's Deathwing Spine. A lot of people that come to this dungeon simply do not clear the entire thing because of this encounter. It is incredibly annoying. Anytime you kill a tentacle, an elemental is going to spawn. There will also be oozes that will slowly spawn from where the elemental was killed. When you kill a blood, it will drop a patch on the ground. So what you're going to need to do is drag the elemental through the patch and it will give it a debuff. You're going to need 9 debuffs on the elemental. So gather 9 bloods, DPS them all at once. And after 9 debuffs, the elemental will go nuclear. You're going to need to kill it at this point, near the most front back plate towards Deathwing's head. It will explode, lifting the plate, at which point you will be able to see tendons. You're going to want to DPS the tendon. Once the tendon has been destroyed, the backplate will fly off. You're going to need to repeat this process 3 times, and it's very annoying. While doing all of this, you're going to need to keep Deathwing balanced as well. If it is unbalanced, there will be an emote, and after 5 seconds, it is an instant wipe mechanic because Deathwing flips over and everyone falls off of it. So if you're soloing this, you're simply just going to need to move back and forth, or stand on top one of the spots where you killed a tentacle, as this will root you in place during the time of a flip. So after I cleared this entire dungeon, I came out with 1000 raw gold, as there's very little or next to no trash in this dungeon at all, and 783 gold in vendor trash. Now you can only do these raid dungeons once per week, obviously due to the raid lockout, but you can do it for every character that you have. So from all 4 of these dungeons that I farmed, I received 3,420 raw gold and 1,966 vendor trash, for a combined total of 5,386 gold in about an hour and a half of farming. This does not include flight time to the instances, as I usually just auto-fly and go AFK during this time, if I don't fatigue death into the ocean, which happens quite a bit actually. So technically, if you're dedicated enough and don't have anything else to do in World of Warcraft and you love grinding things out like this, you could run this 11 times a week per server. And just using my numbers from this run for this week, you would come out at 59,246 gold a week, or 236,984 gold per month. Obviously, those numbers aren't concrete and will shift up and down depending if you're running with other people or not, and how much loot you get versus how much loot they're winning. And something else that will also factor in is if weapons are dropping more often than not, they do provide a larger vendor value than armor. That's all for this video, guys. I'll be trying to upload 2 gold guides per week and a gold vlog every Sunday. So if that's your thing, don't forget to subscribe. Also, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, links are in the description.